What's up guys, Intellitech Studios here, and today we're going to be doing the full review on the Eureka TheBoss SmartVac. Now there's a few different Eurekas that bear the SmartVac name, but this one's the most popular and the most common, the 4870 model. Now, this particular machine belongs to my mother-in-law, and I just completely serviced it and replaced the cord on it and gave it a nice little clean. But I also have my red model that I have been daily driving for past couple weeks in preparation for this full review. Now, this machine is no longer in production, and it is no longer available from Eureka, but it's a very common machine that you're likely to find secondhand pretty easily, be it at thrift stores, flea markets, or maybe even your local vacuum store if they deal in secondhand machines. Hi, Rika. So, the question is if you find one of these for cheap, is it a good machine? And this review will hopefully answer those questions. The first thing I'm going to do is show you how to change the bag and the filters. Since I was going to change the filters in this anyways in preparation for this review, so I'll show you how to do that just in case you need to know. So you pull this gray tab right here and you can remove the bag door. Now there's this little yellow tab right here that you pull out of the way, and you can now pull the bags down and off of the collar. Now, you can buy HEPA bags, which will look like this, a kind of cloth material, and I do recommend these over paper. I will link some in the description. This uses Eureka style RR. And whenever you want to put this in, there's a little groove right up here that you need to sit this back of this groove into. So you're going to kind of push it up and line it up with the bag collar. We're going to put it in this little tab right here and push it up until it clicks. There we go. So once it clicks into place, this should not move. And then we can tuck the bag in and close the bag door. Just like that. Sometimes the door is a little tricky to get on, but that's pretty typical. So changing the bag in this is very easy, and you can get HEPA bags for improved filtration. This is one of the first bypass sealed systems that you could buy, so the actual filtration quality on this is pretty good for an average department store machine. And Eureka vacuums aren't usually known for good filtration, but this particular one is an exception. Hi, Boot. So that's pretty good. As far as changing the filters, I want to remove the bag just so you can see this a little bit easierly. That's not a word. But we're going to replace the pre-motor filter, which is right here. This one's not in the best condition, but it's better than the one that's in there. I do need to order another one. And replace the HEPA filter. Now, generally, these HEPA filters should be changed about every year or so, maybe 2, depending on your usage. These pre-motor filters, I'd also recommend changing about every year or so. They do say to change it depending on your usage and all that, but again, this all depends on your usage. But just look at it. If it looks dirty, change it. I'll try to find these and link them in the description as well in case you need them. So, to replace the pre-motor filter, there's this little tab right here. You just pull this little grill out of the way, pull out the filter, and discard it. You want to discard these once they get all puffy like this. They're supposed to be thin. So when they're all puffy, that means that this thing is clapped out. You need to change it. So we're going to take the new one. Again, new, I use that term very loosely. And we're going to take this little grill and pop it right back on. And of course, since I removed my bag already, we'll go ahead and put the bag back on. And click it into place. Tuck in the bag. And click the door on. So the pre-motor filter has now been changed. To change the HEPA filter, you pull this tab right here. Now this grill does look a little bit different depending on your Eureka. Some of them, for example, look like this, but they work the same way. Pull this tab out of the way, and usually the filter will just fall out. We can see the difference between the old and the new one. This one's supposed to be white. This one's slightly used, but this one's really bad. So this definitely needs to be changed. So we're going to discard the old one, take the new one, pop it right in. It's going to kind of try to fall out, so I usually recommend leaning the machine back, but for the sake of video, line up this tab, push it in, and click it into place. So, if you've done that, now your 4870 has a brand new set of filters. Next, I'm going to show you how to use the machine, just in case you have one of these and don't know how to use it. The power switch is located right up the top here. These switches do have kind of a habit of failing, but it's usually an over-the-counter switch. why did I say over the counter like it's a drug? This is usually a pretty standard part that you can find. Again, if you have any issues with your 4870, take it to your local vacuum shop and they should be able to fix it. Although keep in mind these machines are quite a few years old now and parts are no longer available. So while you will be able to find brush rolls, belts, and filters and attachments, you're not going to be able to find much else outside of that. So these are getting kind of long in the tooth. The main reason why I service this one is because it belongs to my mother-in-law, who acquired it from her mother, who has unfortunately passed away. This was handed down to her as a result, so she wants to keep this running as long as possible, and that's why it's currently in my possession, because the cord on the back started splitting, and this is a problem with these. These cords like to split right here, and in this case the copper was actually showing. So if you have that problem, do not use this machine, shut it off, unplug it, and take it to your local vacuum store so they can fix that. Or if you know someone like me, then take it to that me, so that way I could fix it, because you cannot use this with the cord splitting. It's a very, very serious safety hazard. And again, I'm only mentioning that because it is a problem that affects these machines after a while. Now, speaking of the cord, there is a cord clip right here at the top of the handle, so you can put the cord right in here to keep it out of the way. So I do recommend using that, and the handle is actually fairly nice. Now, as far as using this, there is an upper cord clip right here that we can swivel to easily remove the cable. There is a dial right here which we need to pay attention to, because this you need to turn in order to switch it from floor mode to hose mode, and that's pretty self-explanatory. You have it on floor mode for when you're vacuuming floors, and you turn this dial to hose mode whenever you want to remove and use the hose. Now this hose is actually a pretty decent length. It's not going to be enough to go up your stairs or anything like that unless you have a landing, but it's perfectly serviceable as far as getting up into corners and all that. Now, I actually did give my mother-in-law all of the attachments that she was missing. So some models of this do have this power paw, which works very well. It's actually a pretty decent turbo brush. This vacuum also uses a standard 1.25" fitting, so it's actually very easy to get attachments for this. And this has this little feature called the riser visor, which allows you to vacuum the backs of stairs, which I really like, although not all models have this. What all models do have is 2 extension wands. Now, the way that you have to do this is you have to attach these wands like this in order to use both of them. So we actually get a good amount of reach there, and any of the attachments, including the upholstery tool and the dusting brush, fit on the end. And this dusting brush in particular is very nice. It's very soft and it's very nice. This upholstery tool has a sort of a fabric lint picker. It actually reminds me a lot of a SIBO upholstery tool, and this one's also pretty decent. I prefer the velvet to this little design, but this does work. And of course, since this is a standard fitting, you can use any universal attachments that you want. And when you're done, all the attachments clip right back on. They're a little tricky, but you can get them. That second one slides in there, and it slides right down here in the side, and then of course the hose wraps around. There's also a crevice tool right underneath here that works very well. And remember, you got to switch this dial back to floor whenever you're done with the tools. Now, when it comes to the front of the machine, whenever you're trying to use it in the floor mode, I say trying as if it doesn't work, it does work. Whenever you're using it in the floor mode, you've got a switch right here that can switch between carpets and bare floors. And the nice thing is whenever you put the machine in the upright position, the brush roller does automatically shut off, assuming that this clutch mechanism is working fine. These clutches do have a really bad habit of failing on these, and a lot of early signs of that is when you have it upright and the brush roller will start to very slowly kind of skip. Whenever the machine is upright, that is a sign that your clutch is going out. Now, there also is a belt that drives the brush roller, but it's a long life belt, so you won't have to change it very often. Usually those belts last several years before they need changed. And again, I'll link that in the description as well. I'll link every wear part that I can find in the description, including the brush roll, assuming I can find it. So all of that I'll try to link in case you need it. You also have several height adjustment positions. You have quite a few. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9 carpet height positions, which is pretty ridiculous. So this will work on pretty much any type of carpet, and this machine actually cleans carpets very, very well. It's one of Eureka's best carpet cleaners. If you don't count the really, really old F&G machines, and those have many other issues. So this particular machine is probably the best modern Eureka that I can really recommend as far as one that you can buy secondhand for that reason. It cleans carpets very well, it cleans bare floors fairly effectively. It's not really designed for it, but it can do it. The tools are pretty decent. The airflow on this is really good, and because of how wide this channel is, this machine is very resistant to clogs. I've never seen one of these get clogged, unless of course it's in the tool hose. So that is pretty good. Now you can kind of hear the plastic and all that. It kind of makes a bit of creaking noises after a while, but the machine is very sturdy. In traditional early 2000s budget department store vacuum fashion, the pedal release is something that does fail all the time. It's actually broken on my red one. So that is something you'll have to deal with, and sometimes it might not stay upright unless you manually push the pedal back in with your foot. But other than that, it is a fairly reliable machine in my experience, and I haven't seen too many things actually break on these other than the flaws that I've already mentioned. Alright, so next will be the official Intellitech Studios pickup test. We've got potato flakes on both carpets and bare floors, and I also sprinkled some scent beads as well. Since this is the old bag, I don't want to throw away a otherwise still have space in it bag, so I threw some scent beads down to make it smell a little bit fresher. We are going to adjust this as needed, and of course we are doing this on carpets, bare floors, and that transition between the two. So let's see how the 4870 does. All right. Oh, wow. Okay, so looking at the carpet, the result is excellent. We do have some debris in between the two, but that's pretty typical. It's really hard for a vacuum to get between this. You usually have to run a crevice tool. And on the floor, wow. Okay, that's even better than I thought. So on the floor, all the scent beads are gone. All the big potato flakes are gone. And on the floor, we only have the slightest bit of dust, which for something like this, where you're not really making a lot of direct contact with the floor, it's not going to be perfect, but that is perfectly in line with what I would expect. The carpet cleaning performance based on this pickup test really does reflect what my experience has been in the real world. Better than average and very, very well. Now, it would be nice if the suction path was actually on the center instead of all the way off to the side, but despite that, the machine manages to cope very well. Although it is worth noting that the small area next to the belt is not going to have good edge cleaning as a result. Edge cleaning on the side where the suction goes to is pretty decent, so a bit of unevenness right there, so the edge cleaning will depend on which side you use as far as the quality of that, but a crevice tool would of course solve the other situation, and there is no shortage of wands and extended reach on this machine, so I would say that's pretty good. While this machine does have its design flaws, considering how cheap this machine was when it first came out and how long it stayed on the market, the Eureka TheBoss SmartVac 4870 has been one of the most successful Eureka platforms ever made, and it's a shame that this machine is no longer produced, as Eureka doesn't make anything bagged anymore. And this machine is very well. It cleans well, it filters pretty decently, especially with HEPA bags, and it's a very versatile upright, which is something that I've always appreciated. I love versatile uprights, and something like this with a nice bag, the ability to clean bare floors and clean carpets. Even though this machine is very heavy and very bulky and it's not very good on my back, which is my biggest gripe with it, you get a lot of bang for your buck. And considering how versatile the machine is, for most people, that's an acceptable trade-off. So yeah, I do really like the 4870. I obviously have one in my collection, and my mother-in-law's, which I will keep running as long as physically possible. So that is that. This was Intellitech Studios with my full review of the Eureka TheBoss SmartVac Model 4870. I definitely recommend it, and if you can find this for around $20-$30 in good condition, definitely go for it if you can handle the weight. This machine weighs about 20-ish, 22 pounds. I'll get an actual measurement later. And yeah, so it's not for anyone with back or mobility issues, but for everybody else, it's a pretty damn good cleaner upright. And like I mentioned, if you can find this for a good deal, go for it. Parts will be in the description, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. This was Intellitech Studios signing out. Have a good one. Peace.